welcome to RB1. My name is Stanley.
Hi, I'm Julia.
Hey, I'm Nate.
Hi, I'm Ben.
I'm Georgia.
And we are a podcast about architecture's news, discussions, and perspectives from us, students.
And today we're going to be discussing about, is architecture even sustainable anymore? So guys, tackle the disconnect between what is taught, what is practiced, and what the planet actually needs from a student's perspective. We were taught to design for the future, but is architecture as a profession even future-proof?
Future-proof.
Yeah.
You mean by You mean by future-proof technology advanced, or you mean like the mix of technology advanced
I
with
guess it's more like the sense of still having a planet.
Yeah, so
Is this sustainable?
yeah, so since we've like used up a lot of resources, like are we as a profession, have we done enough to provide resources for the future needs of the planet and society in general?
Well, I mean, I think as of right now, we're still kind of riding the trail line of the Industrial Revolution with steel and concrete. But the difference between then and now is that we know the effects on the environment of using those materials. And it's not necessarily that we don't have to use them. It's just the way that we're producing them and shipping them. It's a lot more costly in terms of carbon waste than it would be, some other sustainable material. But the issue with that then becomes, how do you use those other materials and have less impact in an actual functional manner? A lot of them, they don't really function as well as steel or concrete, especially depending on the climate, And I feel like the biggest issue in terms of sustainability is that right now people, they make their designs, their buildings, and it's like, oh, well, I'll make fancy windows that close on their own, or instead of AC, there's like gas to let the air in or something like that. Whereas it should be going in deeper than that. Like, yeah, you can save on energy consumption, yeah, but you should also be thinking about the waste that is being produced in making the actual building itself, because you make a concrete building, you're gonna produce a lot of waste when you're actually handling the concrete. So something breaks, it's literally coming in the right size. You're gonna go back to the factory, cast more panels, whatever it is you're casting, and then shipping it back to the site.
Yeah. So your answer is that architecture is not future-proof, or?
Well, I think architecture in and of itself is future-proof, but in terms of sustainability, I think we need to do a little bit more. Like we're starting to get there, but as of right now, some of it is a little performative.
I think we're walking towards that direction, especially from seeing different researches from our professors, And I think that's why I asked you about the technology, because whether you like it or not, the more the technology evolves, the better researchers are going to get, the more materials we're going to discover. And I agree with you, Stan. It's not about just simply, I'm going to put a green roof, or I'm going to use natural air instead of mechanical ventilation, And I think that the more advanced technology gets, which it has been with this whole, like how AI is evolving, the better each researcher is going to find a solution for a new material, or for a new way of construction, or for avoiding something. I mean, we can just look at an example that has been happening. I've seen a couple cases here in Florida, how people are using actually seaweed as a means of material. And that's a renewable material, that's natural as well. So it's like, I think we are walking towards the direction, and I think that will help to boost that, whether we like it or not, is the boost that AI has gotten, because technology evolved more. People are creating different tools and different means of researching. That's my point of view. But I think we're going to get there.
In my opinion, I think we're a little bit, pun intended, I guess, a little green in terms of sustainable. It's a relatively newer concept, I would say. As architects, we do try to promote it, but there are many facets that actually prevent us from being sustainable. A, client constraints.
Yeah.
B would be costs is a big one. D, just the construction industry as it is currently.
Yeah.
It all comes down to these multiple facets of architecture, of these branches of architecture, that do start creating more and more constraints. Again, I do believe we are starting to, as Julia said, walk in that direction of becoming more sustainable, but are we doing it fast enough is the question.
Yeah.
Because just the building sector alone, I believe, produces more than 10% of our carbon emissions in general,
Like globally?
globally. Yeah,
Or even more.
it's
I think it was like 40 or 50%.
yeah. No, I said more than 10 of being very conservative, but yeah, it's definitely probably 40 to 50% of what we actually produce, especially concrete. Steel's a little bit better. Wood is definitely a lot better, but there are the constraints of both wood and steel. Wood is not as resilient as concrete.
Yeah.
Steel in and of itself has the environment or the natural factors, including wind, sea, and all of those factors that cause it to erode, cause it to what's the word? Rust.
Yeah.
So there are times where we can't really use it as much. We try to, and then especially here, where in Florida, we actually kind of have to battle against that, especially during hurricane season.
The materials are, in a sense, region locked.
Yeah.
How about you?
I feel like as architects, we are doing a lot better than what we were doing 5-10 years ago. And I feel like we keep developing, we keep having more technology helping us to evolve all these materials, because at the end of the day, the cost is what does the seller. At the end of the day, if the architect wants to make the building super sustainable and the client doesn't have the money or doesn't want to do it, it's not going to happen. So at the end of the day, as architects, we can try our best to make it sustainable, but it's not always fully up to us to do it. So that's my intake.
Yeah, I agree with what all of you guys have said. It would require a holistic approach to all of it, like in terms of like governmental regulations, even like a culture to how we treat materials, like even finance, like like let's be honest, it all goes back to the money.
Yeah.
We had this discussion in class. One issue. It's all about money. It's like people want to make money, people want to save money, right? It's cheaper to probably do concrete than it is to.
So there's
sorry. Go ahead.
But there's a thing on whenever you make a building sustainable, you get something back. So whenever a client wants to, I don't remember.
You're talking about the LEED certification?
Yes.
Yeah.
Whenever you get the LEED certification, I believe you get taxes back. Is that?
Yeah, I guess there is a
Tax
government,
reduction.
like, so I guess there's some sort of like government incentive.
Yes.
Yeah.
So whenever they do that, the idea for them is just to get the LEED certification. That's it. But they want to spend the least amount of money, and the clients becomes really, really, really heavy and really. I don't know. It feels like it's always on your head to try to make that project be the least cost, but have the least certification.
Yeah.
And it becomes a struggle with everyone else.
Yeah, and I think it's also the fact that we're like, as a society or in the world in general, we're all like turning away from maybe looking at indigenous materials.
Yeah.
As opposed to like using concrete. Like there's a lot of concrete in the world. We use a lot of concrete. As opposed to like, using the materials that are readily available that, probably people in that region have been using for centuries. God knows, I don't know, hundreds of centuries, millenniums. And maybe it goes back to the idea that, this is international style. This is a style that maybe fits everybody, but that's not the case, Every architecture is unique to its environment, its locale. And if it is unique to its locale, it will use the resources of that locale. It's the materials already available there.
Yeah, I think what it really came down to is that materials past like wood, concrete, steel haven't been as researched.
Mm.
So most people tend to shy away from it. But now that we're getting this research out there, like you mentioned, there's a professor that deals in seaweed. Now that has become a kind of way to implement natural, more local materials, we'll start to see this shift from like mainly wood structures, mainly concrete structures, mainly steel structures.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I guess I think that the main issue from all of our point of views is it always goes back to the client. And I think that a way that could have solved this issue would have been some sort of way that you could re-educate the client on, like, look, there's this way to make a building, there's this other way to make a building. I understand, like, I guess it would go hand in hand with architectural, like, research revolution together with client re-education, because if we're not evolving and researching different materials and making them affordable, the client's never gonna have their mind open to be re-educated into different materials. Because let's be honest, you guys, concrete, yes, it is a sustainable problem, but it's beautiful. It makes buildings beautiful. And in Florida, like, it's the most sustainable. Like, you're actually paying a bang for your buck. It's gonna stay there. You're gonna have a better rate of success by using that material. How can we and how can researchers help the clients to change their point of view? And I think that's how architecture needs to move, like Ben was saying. I don't think we're moving fast enough, but that's how ideally it would move fast enough for us to start preparing for the future. Because if you truly think about it, I think I saw this on Instagram. Car dealerships, they're just gonna go away. What's gonna happen to the real estate? Because, for example, Tesla, they have some dealerships, but they sell online.
Yeah.
And most of those are typical construction materials, and when they get demolished, how is that going to impact the world, you know? And I think we need to start preparing for, okay, there's going to be a demolition of a typical building. How can we, in place of that, build something that will be sustainable and maybe help in some sort the community that surrounds that, bring back this environmental aspect and help in general.
Actually, speaking of the demolition aspect, it's funny that you bring that up, because I remember there was like a topic recently, or I guess a while back online, about like how food chains, like the comparison between then and now in terms of like visuals is very different. Like before, they used to have their very own unique styles, whether it's Burger King, McDonald's, Wendy's,
Yep.
But now they're all kind of like the same, or all the buildings at least look the same on the outside.
Yeah.
But the reason why that happened is because a lot of those chains and like their business focus went from food more into real estate.
Yeah.
And what happened was that if they had to move a chain somewhere else, that building wouldn't get sold because it had, like the awnings or like the roof would be stylized for like McDonald's, so no one would want to buy the building because you could have a massage parlor, but then you drive by and it looks like a McDonald's. So then they would have to completely demolish the whole building to then build something else.
Yeah.
And because of that, they started having their buildings where it's like a more general shape. They still try to make it appealing and have their own style, but the style comes more of like how they accessorize the building versus how the building is itself.
Yeah.
And that way they can actually, allow the building to stand when they decide to move that chain somewhere else, because then someone can come in and use that building for something else, so they don't have to demolish it. It's more likely that building is going to get sold and repurposed for something else.
Yeah.
It's always look at sustainability, because demolition is very unsustainable if you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that your point of view too also goes back to like the fast food market business model, because it's like they have this idea that Professor's talking about Fordism. If you think about it, like most likely the architect that in Florida that is doing McDonald's, they're doing 5 different other locations: Miami, Boca, West Palm, Orlando, like that, because you already have the plan set. You just have to adapt it to the new site, to the setbacks, to the coding, and everything else. Like, but it's the same pattern. It's like mass modeling, and people that have like celebrities that are really big business moguls. You know, they own a lot of them. I think I saw I think online like I think this basketball player he owns like five or 10 the five guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's what you're saying. Like it becomes a business model for the entrepreneurs. You know.
Yeah.
It just I guess how can we help them keep that sustainable?
Well, getting to
Yeah.
the question.
Yeah. So coming back to school, like, what is the sustainable principles that were being taught in school? And what are some examples of inspiring sustainable design you've studied?
I think that a big one, at least for me, that opened my eye to different type of material that was very inspiring was design when we're in design 5 that we had to learn about biogenic houses.
Yeah, then
I learned about CLT panels and it was very interesting because I mean it's wood, but it's stronger. And then like I learned a lot like different ways of construction. There's bamboo, which I think could be a cool one. I don't know if it could be built in Florida. Hopefully, eventually one day. But I think that design. Yeah, but I think that design. I think that the goal, at least from my point of view, was to open our eyes to different type of constructions, different type of materials, without impacting so much what are we designing on like a spread.
Yeah, I would say for me, like using the waste of different construction sites and using that waste to or like as a building material.
Yeah, usually as aggregates for concrete mixes.
Yeah, that or like it ends up becoming like a filament for like a 3D print, and that that then becomes or that opens the door to being able to print your
House.
yeah, I guess. But not necessarily like you print the whole thing in one go. You print different like sections or different walls and stuff, and that allows you to then save on the material costs. You're not generating as much impact because you're not necessarily generating waste, or at least you're not generating same waste in the same quantity as other projects are, and it can oftentimes expedite the process.
What class was that?
Structures 3.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
I think another thing is if we start to learn this concept of 3D printing, like we've seen this at some conferences that they're 3D printing concrete, and so what that also does is it takes out labor costs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
So that's also another way the client saves, and we can start becoming a little bit more sustainable.
Do you have any examples of sustainable design you looked at?
I mean, the only thing that I've heard or seen is the from structures 3, the seaweed 3D printing material. I just yeah.
For me, I have what I've noticed, like just doing research, is like a lot of like the Nordic like architecture firms.
Yeah.
They do a lot of like research into like sustainable like materials or sustainable methods of construction. There are a couple firms that come to mind. There's Henning Larsen. I think it's a Swedish or Danish firm. They do a lot of that. There's also this one called like I think it's 3GXN or something like that, or GXN. I don't remember. But they also do a lot of like really sustainable methods or construction methods. What's another one? I don't know. It's probably President Denmark. You guys probably
Yeah.
I think at the Miami.
The Pan Museum.
Pan Museum. Yeah, they do a lot of like really great work in terms of like sustainable materials, like thinking about future-proofing the profession, future-proofing our walls. So going to the second segment of this podcast episode, why doesn't school connect to practice, like in terms of like sustainable, like what we're learning in school versus like what's going on in practice?
Well, I feel like itself there's a big gap between what is school and what is practice.
Yeah.
So you trying to put together three things at the same time, which is sustainability with practice. That's things that have to be put together, and then also trying to connect studio with practice and sustainability. It gets so much apart. Yeah, I feel like it's kind of hard for the students to understand how to make a building sustainable if they don't know how to make a building in the first place.
Yeah. I guess throwing back to what we heard this week from our professor, that to be open-minded about the things that we're gonna see this upcoming semester, because we're all, just so the viewers know, we're all in the same design class,
Yeah.
and we had a discussion in our section because we are in the same section, and he was saying to be open-minded about the things that we're gonna touch on, because that way we're always gonna stay curious, we're always gonna stay researchers, and that way we're always gonna evolve with the future. And I think that if we were to connect too much practice with school, I think that the interest for research would not been there as much. Because, for example, there's a lot of people, if you think about it, not the percentage of students that go to architecture school to become an architecture teacher, professor, or researcher is very small. If the school were to become a technical school where it includes the sustainable aspect and everything, and maybe the percentage would even go smaller, because students that, for example, you have a goal in being an architect, but you're a great researcher, Nate. Maybe if the school is had a more technical aspect, maybe that would have not sparkled in you, because no one would have pushed you to do it,
Yeah.
So I think that it's great the fact that they don't, because in that way you get to experiment with different materials, with different ideas and different forms of research. And then once you gain experience, you're like, okay, this is my knowledge, and I'm very confident with my knowledge. How can I apply it to the practice? How can I help my firm with the firm that I'm working on, or my actual firm that I'm an entrepreneur? How can I move forward? How can I evolve? And then you're always going to stay curious. I think that's the learning process of school.
Yeah, I agree. Because honestly, without research, we can't really start to build these sustainable designs.
Yeah.
Because without trial and error, what is there really? Obviously, we don't want trial and error on larger, extremely large scales, because that in and of itself is wasteful design.
Yeah.
But to do it on smaller scales, like this, using seaweed as like filament for 3D printing, great. Especially when you're doing it in smaller modules. We even saw they used 3D printed like concrete for seawalls.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think another thing we have to take into account is that we need to be sustainable from the start. We need to we have to be sustainable starting from the first step of our design process. Because if we just add a green roof at the end, that's no longer just being sustainable. That's just performative. It's performative.
Yeah.
It's just for show. You don't really have the same benefits of an actual sustainable design.
Yeah.
You could say it's green and all by slapping on a green roof, but is it really?
In the certification area.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a mindset. Like from the early on, you have to have a mindset, of being sustainable. It's not like you said. You get to the end and you're like, oh, now make it sustainable. you slap on, solar panels here.
And we kind of learned this in D6 when we had to start with daylight strategies and then take that through our entire project.
Yeah.
And it's not at the end we're like, oh, we need to add a window here for some reason.
Yeah.
And then I think like what practice could do, like something like I've learned in class is like they could do like life cycle cost estimation or life cycle cost and show it to the clients and use that to,
Entice.
we're showing them that okay, this is not only sustainable, but this is gonna
Save you money.
Yeah, this is gonna cost you less in the long term,
And that's just, it's gonna, that aspect is gonna depend on the building, because obviously the cost of a single family residential room is gonna be different from a multi-office building.
Yeah.
But in terms of the difference between practice and school, it's mainly just, I feel like what we've all been saying up until this point is just that there's continuous research that is still going on.
Yeah.
So there's no real way for school to be able to, or even practice for them, or to be able to keep up with the research that's happening.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's just that with practice, they're doing what they know works,
Yeah.
And there could be an amazing amount of research that's coming out, but none of it is fully, 100% proven to work, to be more effective than any other type of strategy or method that's used in the past. And that's why there's that disparity. Obviously, it's going to change over time. The more things become proven to be sound and usable, the more options you're going to have in the future in terms of how you want to, organize your ability to become sustainable. But as of right now, you just have to keep that in mind.
Yeah. Even going back to like what you brought up about our professor like talk to us or give that lecture a couple of days ago about, how it's hard for, the real world to actually incorporate all of this technology, all of this research that we're doing because it's also like a governmental thing. Like it's hard for government, for society to, take in all of this because it's slow for them to, make decisions like that.
Yeah.
And it's something that we also have to be like, think about. And it's also something that we, as like a new generation, we can impact the field of architecture and sustainable work by pretty much taking what we've learned. And that I think that's gonna make us very valuable when we get into the workforce because it's a new skill and it's a skill that the world is gonna need. And if we're having this opportunity to learn at our school, we're learning all this new technology, and when we get out there, we're gonna be very valuable.
Yeah.
I think, I just think a big, because, there's many advances going on right now in terms of technology in any field, architecture, engineering, even with how prevalent AI is becoming right now. But I feel like it's good that we're making these steps, but we also be careful not to try and overstep, or at least know where our current boundaries are, because as of right now, like a big issue with the research and and sort of sustainability is the energy costs in doing everything, whether it's manufacturing the materials, moving the materials, actually putting it all together. That's a big part of it right now. And as things stand, we don't have the means of using a energy source that is efficient enough to do all the stuff that I want to do while keeping the carbon emissions to a minimum. We've heard it's like I don't mean to be cynical, or trying to like be Mr. Doom and Gloom, but I'm just saying we need to be mindful, like not to overstep our boundaries. Just think we're gonna run into a problem. You have to I guess look to the future. But take it one step at a time.
I'm gonna be honest. I kind of disagree with you on that because you brought up the idea of like transportation, like the cost it takes, the energy you're using to bring us materials and source us materials, and the answer to that would be using local materials. Once you use local materials, you don't have to worry about using energy on transportation of materials. And the embodied energy, that's what you're talking about. The embodied energy is the cost or embodied cost of what it takes to get that material from where source that material and actually put it on site and construct it.
So what about areas where like the material isn't? Again, I'm not trying to be.
Do me?
Yeah. but like, for example, like in Florida, right?
Yeah.
Like concrete isn't necessarily native to Florida. It's just due to the
It's not native anywhere.
But my point is concrete is not native. It's not a native Florida material. It's just the properties of concrete make it more viable to use than other materials out there. But in terms of the Florida landscape, what is there to use?
Apparently, I think limestone. Limestone is native. That's what it's under. Like when you start digging, and limestone is very strong.
And concrete limestone is actually what the Romans used.
Yeah.
In their concrete, it's what made the Colosseum. It's what they used to literally create their civilization that's still around today.
Yeah, that is true, right?
Sorry.
Or you.
I think that there's a way that we're gonna get there. If you truly think about it, looking outside from the architecture perspective, the whole world is evolving right now. Like from the COVID year, the pandemic, until now, look at the rise of the electric cars. Look at the rise of the AI. And everything is shifting right now. The power of the social media. And I think that same shift that each market is having, architecture is having as well. I mean, if you have a conversation with an architect that started their firm or started their practice in 1970s, right? He has a lot more experience than us, that's for sure.
Of course.
But he sees the world differently than we do. And his point of view and the practices that he has seen throughout his whole career is completely different than the practice that we are going to have. It doesn't matter how much we try. Materials have changed. The practice has changed. So the codes, everything, like the sustainability, everything more is becoming more reliable. Like how you actually integrate AI into your firm if you're interested, which I think that eventually every firm will be forced to, I think. But
That's just something fun, right?
that's something for another day. But what I'm saying is that I think everything has its time and things are going to shift. But I want to bring back something that you said that I think is very important. You said something about firms having their own research.
Yeah.
And I think that would have been the way to tie the gap in between school and practice. Because if school is doing research in sustainability or other topics, and you go to work for a firm that is doing research on that, man, that's great because it means that you get to move on with your research from school, from an academic or scholarly point of view, to where you're actually gaining money, you're practicing, you're learning, you're getting your AXP hours, you're doing different things, and you're actually going to be able to see how an actual firm researches. Because it's a different type of research, like what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
It's better for you to do an error now in school because you're not putting anyone's life in danger than in practice. So the way they research most likely is somewhat different than what we're researching.
Yeah.
I think that firms need to do that more often, like researching different materials, how to evolve.
Yeah, that's true. Funny enough, just going back to what Ben was talking about, or is it you who brought up the limestone? You brought the limestone. It's funny enough, like, we've been using limestone concrete in Florida, like, it was a part of the colonial, like, when you go back to colonial architecture, like, in Florida, they use limestone in a lot of their houses. Mm-hmm. I don't remember the name of the sort of concrete limestone, I don't remember what it's called, but yeah, they actually use it. They use seashells, and then they grind it up with limestone, and it's a really strong concrete that's really durable and sustainable. And yeah, it's something. That's one way that I was, because Sunny was talking about that in Florida there's not much you can do, but that is something you can do. Yeah, I remember Professor Professor Willa, I'm gonna say Professor Willa talked about it in one of the readings we did during spring semester. I don't remember the name exactly, but yeah. So, going into the third segment of this podcast, what power do students actually have? It's sustainability.
I mean, we are the future.
Write it down.
Listen, at least I'm not being Mr. Gumindumi.
So at the end of the day, any research that we do, from here to 10, 15 years from now, it's gonna be what's gonna be happening. Whatever we do, it's gonna stay, it's gonna be bring together, it's gonna be in the future. We are gonna be the architects that are gonna be working from now on. So at the end of the day, we do matter in a sense.
Yeah, thanks.
I guess you're gonna sound like you. I guess that the power that we have is the power of now.
Write that down.
Write that down. The power of now. What do I mean by that? Because not only we get to learn about new advancements in research, but we also get to influence those who are gonna be in our shoes eventually.
Yeah.
So we get to influence, like, hey, this is great and this and that. Like, I guess like the idea of networking, I guess. But like when you talk to younger classes and you tell, I learned this and that in Design 5. right? For example, I could tell my friend that is in design 5, oh, I love working with CLT panels. Maybe she's gonna take a look at them. Maybe she's gonna see, okay, how can I actually improve the CLT panel? And then she has that conversation with a friend that is in design more than her. And that's how it moves on the word, and that's how everything's gonna start evolving. It's gonna be like a nice ladder, because then research is gonna be passed down and people are gonna move forward. And I think that's gonna be the way architecture is gonna have to move quicker, because each class gonna graduate and firms are gonna get similar researches, and they're eventually gonna see that, let's do it, So we're gonna do it in the future.
I mean, it's basically just how society has been working for, since the beginning. It's like, it's like roughly every decade or so, it's influenced by the generation that, that kind of superseded the previous one.
Sorry.
Oh my god. This don't mean this video.
I have black and white is. Sorry, something else in the I'm not trying to call them.
Are you crying?
Yeah.
Oh my
You gotta edit out a little video. But yeah, so go. Yeah, it's basically like the trend, roughly is like every decade or so. That decade is defined by that generation that grew up and took charge, So it's basically what's just gonna happen with us, with architecture. We're gonna be the next people to go into the workforce, and for that next 10-ish, maybe 15, 20 years or so, that's gonna be defined by what we do, and then it's gonna be the people after us and after them.
Yeah.
I think, yes, like you mentioned, the power of now is so important, because even when architects go to the legislative, hearing from them is boring.
Now you remember Mr. Gloomy and Doomy?
Hearing from architects, these older architects, honestly gets boring to them. So they have legislative day, where we as students go out and we advocate for what we believe is the right way to do architecture, or the right way, or the right step forward in architecture.
I mean, that's why a lot of those guys are there, because they're at least trying to make an attempt to, maybe change their outlook to see how they can change their process within their practice.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, if no one evolves, everything's gonna start dying down. Now, Mr. Gloomy and Doomy. But it's true, what you're saying. If there's no connection, no networking, or no involvement, what's gonna happen?
If we as students don't go out there and put ourselves out there to legislative, to firms, we're not actively trying to benefit the practice.
Yeah. That's a great point, Benjamin. Talking about legislative day. I think is it something that happens in every state, or is this one of
I'm assuming.
I believe it happens in every state.
It should. I think AIA does some type of partner. They need to have this connection with the government, the state.
So yeah, that is one way that students can go out there and fight for sustainability. For me, I think we'll go back to the mindset. I did a lot of research last year about adaptive use. It was a topic that I was really fascinated by. There's this idea that the most sustainable building is the one that already exists, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there's no need to demolish. Yeah. So I think the future really is, or the future will be, is how do we adaptively reuse existing buildings. That's
Plus how we design buildings that can adapt to different scenarios.
Yeah. Because you go back to, we're talking about some class with professors talking about if you go back to the ancient Romans or the Italians in Renaissance, and how the buildings are standing the test of time. They did not deteriorate; they're still standing because of the way they built it. Even Professor Sandel's office in Italy it's 1,500 years old. Like that's a studio in Italy, and
Yeah, a big part of the ancient buildings is due to the fact that they use masonry. Like, using rocks and like earthbound materials. Those are not gonna, especially if you prepare them the right way and you use them the right way, they're not gonna go away for any, unless it's some outside factor that causes them to either erode or to collapse. But it's like you were saying, like those buildings, like the Pantheon or the Parthenon, or both of them. Yeah, they're both still here to this day,
yeah,
and it's because of the material and craftsmanship
yeah.
that allowed them to exist, and also their importance, their significance allowed or prevented people from moving them.
Historic restoration is a big topic on that.
Oh yeah.
I guess that could be a topic for another day.
Yeah.
I think it comes down to the definition of like what is architecture, that monumentality that defines architecture from art. That way that we sustain buildings and the way we use them in different ways, as you said, adaptive reuse
Yeah.
to use these old buildings. I believe, what was it? It used to be St. Peter's Basilica. Wasn't that the like marketplace?
St. Peter's.
I think I know what you're talking about.
I'm forgetting the name.
And you see a marketplace and that.
I think it used to be used both as a marketplace and as a place for like public hearings. Essentially.
You're talking about like it was in a park, like a public square that had different buildings, and one had a marketplace, or one that had like a courtroom.
I believe so.
Anyway, I can.
Either way, even nowadays it's still used for public gatherings. It used to be a famous like marketplace. I think it still is on certain days.
Okay.
I guess that we are doing our part, by studying architecture and thinking of the future. But this is the question that I think I brought earlier. That honestly, I don't even know how would that be answered. Would be how can we help our clients make better decisions, because it doesn't matter if we're doing progressive. I mean, it does matter, but if we're doing progressive research and this and that, because in the end of the day, you didn't buy the land, you're not financing a project, and you're not selling the units. How can you educate your client, the one that is investing, the one that is paying for your services and everything, to believe in your research, to push forward your research? You know what? I'm gonna go with that material that you recommended. Let's not use concrete, And I think that that's the part that, from what I've heard from different professionals, that sometimes it gets hard on how to educate the client. But I guess that's a mystery box that we're gonna have to open in the future.
I mean, I guess a potential small time answer for that would just be like having architects, have some type of governmental position, whether like in the and now that they have an influence in terms of I guess in this case, we'll go with like Portugal, or like they have a greater shot at informing people or non-architect people of all of this stuff that we're learning, in terms of sustainability and and all the different like options that you can go with. So now when it's their time to finance their their projects, they already have a baseline understanding, and then we would just be there to go in further detail, if need be.
You're talking about like government, you're talking about local things.
I mean, any government, whether it's federal, local, state government.
Yeah. I guess that's something that we could explore eventually. But I think there's a solution for that.
Yeah. What's up, man? Yeah. All right. Going into the outro, or the call to action. All right, guys. In 3 sentences or less. What is one thing we're all gonna do this semester to make our work more future friendly?
I guess by doing not opposite, but what is the word? Cohort, whenever two things are happening at the same time.
Coding? Or
Yeah, like doing like the research simultaneous, doing simultaneous research on because our topic for this design is very unique and very abstract. So that's gonna be a very hard topic to tackle. But I feel like if you have a simultaneous research on having your design student being research along the side, you're like, oh, this could be done with this. How can let me research? You know, and then eventually you're gonna start passing down the knowledge to people after you, and eventually that's gonna start bringing better things.
I don't think that was 3 sentences left, but we'll go with it.
Well, that's one point.
I think it's about defining what we're doing. Because currently our project is to develop a office building. I think by defining how we use office spaces, we can make it more sustainable.
Yeah.
Especially if we are thinking is offices of the future, how will people in the future be using it?
For instance.
It's hard. This is a very hard topic. It's sensitive in a sense.
Yeah, it's necessary. My turn?
Don't forget about it. It's 75 sentences.
Whole paragraph. I think just for me to make sure that however the design comes up, where it can adapt to multiple different uses, you know, so that way, like we were saying before, you know, it doesn't have to be broken down or torn down, you know, to fit some other game.
I
Yeah.
mean, oof, what a question. This semester, I feel like it's a hard semester to implementing sustainability, but I don't think it's impossible. I do feel like, as Julia said, we can definitely make a project that can be sustainable. But as of right now, it's a difficult topic to get into sustainability. You cannot say anything.
No, I'm laughing because he's calling you sentences. And I know what you're saying. What you're saying is valid. He did like this little bit.
Alright.
Yeah, right.
They don't have 3 in the thing?
Let's see. So going back to what you guys have said.
One sentence.
Come on. I think sustainability is not just about materials. It's more about its function and use. He has one sentence, right? And so for me, I'm gonna look a lot into like the history, which is why I've already done. Look into the history of the place itself, the site itself, the history of the people, the history of the space we're designing for, and really think about how you can contribute with it. There's this amazing quote by the architect Norman Foster, and it goes along the lines of something like this: to look far into the future, you have to look far into the past. So that's it.
Right now.
That was for.
Write it down.
That was for.
That was for?
No, that's a
We ruined it at the last part.
Well, no, it's
that's a long.
That's a run-on sentence if you
That's
put
a
that.
paragraph.
No, I put a, what was that I call it?
That's
A column? Yeah.
But after the quote, you had it at 3 sentences at the quote, and then you ruined it at the end.
The
It was
quote was the
valid.
3rd sentence, and then after that was the 4th.
It was not. The quote was a good sentence. I'll give you that.
But guys, I guess that wraps up episode 4 of the Arc Rewind podcast. Please tune into our YouTube platform, all the social media platform, TikTok, Instagram, and I think we're even on LinkedIn. Check that out. So yeah, you guys have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm a link it.
Yeah, so much, guys. Yo, you said, I'm not gonna talk that much in this episode. I was like, what?